All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Patterson Report podcast. I'm Brandon, that's Ryan. We didn't plan on matching today, but it worked out that way.
Yeah, it did.
Obviously, Thursday is a holy day in sports fandom, so in respect of the round of 64, we decided to bump this up a day and get this pod out on a Wednesday because I don't know about you, neither one of us want to be doing this tomorrow night when March Madness is on. I'm sure none of you are going to be watching.
Oh, yeah, my bracket's going to be ripped to shreds by the time I get to Showtime tomorrow night. I'll tell you that much.
Absolutely. So, and I want to watch it happen. I want to watch the destruction. So, we're getting this out of the way today. The last few weeks have been very Eagles heavy, which it's that time of the year when we love talking about the potential moves, the free agency signings, the trades. We'll get into that a little bit today too, because I mean that's obviously I love football season, but the second best thing to football season is the off season. I just love watching Howie go to work trying to build a team. But the WBC just happened. We really haven't talked too much about it, and there's a lot of Philly ties to the WBC, and the Phillies kind of stole the show, I think. As far as, the Royals are getting an awful lot of love because Vinny Pasquantino was such a great ambassador for that team and for Team Italy. Bobby Witt had a pretty horrendous WBC at the plate, but defensively he was a wizard. So you're hearing all the times about that. Just last night, Salvador Perez and Team Venezuela take everything home. So it's been, the Royals and the Phillies, I would say, have kind of stolen the show. But as far as on-field production, there's been some Phillies really showing out. So we'll build up to the big guys, Schwarber and Harp. But to start off on the smaller side of things, how about Dante Nori and Team Italy? If you're not a complete Phillies sicko and know about our farm system, Dante Nori's in Double-A. Now he was our first round pick back in 2024, so he has promise, but there wasn't an awful lot expected of him right away. Again, he's sitting in Double-A, and Justin Crawford, skipped right ahead, and kind of has been looked at as the future of the outfield. But Dante Nori won all WBC center field. He was the number one center fielder in this entire tournament of the best baseball players in the world. So I think it is time that we start, talking about how he fits into the pieces here. And the timing of the report wasn't great, but you have Dante Nori winning top center fielder in this entire tournament, and less than 24 hours later, I have to hear that Topper and Dave are trying out Garrett Stubbs in the outfield.
Dave was right for about 95% of that tournament, and now he's very wrong because Harper got his criticism. We're going to build up to that, but man, Dante Nori was an absolute stud. They're not going to fast track him or anything like the broadcast that I remember people were tweeting about that, how, he's going to be the starting everyday center fielder, whatever corner outfield spot for the Phillies. That's not going to happen. But, man, he's going to get fast tracked, I think. He's probably going to start the season Double-A, I believe. But he could go to Triple really quick.
They already sent him to Reading. That's why I can't wrap my head around. Like, he's going to start the year in Double-A. I start him in Lehigh. This kid's got it.
Yeah, when you got it, you clearly got it, and it looks like he does. And it's interesting to see how the Phillies handle their prospects, how they're handling Aiden Miller, how they're handling Dante Nori, how they're handling Andrew Painter, of course. It's just really interesting to see all that go on here, especially Crawford last season. We were calling for that call up midway through last season.
Yeah, they kind of handled their prospects with like kid gloves, and there's some reasoning behind that. Obviously these guys, Justin Crawford last year, what we kept hearing, the same kind of stories Aiden Miller this year. They want to get those constant at bats, be in the lineup every single day, and that's great and all. But you see the jump these guys have to make when they come to the bigs. You could have, play 140 at 162 or whatever. I forget how long the minor league season is. It's somewhere along those lines. But it doesn't prepare you for what you're going to see at the major league level. And I just think that Dante Nori, again, he's a 2024 draft pick. He just kind of exploded onto the scene right now. But When you're looking at Crawford and Miller, et cetera, it seems like we leave these guys down as long as we humanly possibly can, and then bring them up thinking, okay, well, they've had all this AAA time, they're going to slip right in. It's probably not the case. Justin Crawford he looked really good to start spring training. He's tapered off considerably. It's not his fault. Again, I mean, it's going to be up and down. A lot of guys have had bad spring trainings, but it just seems like the Phillies think that we'll store them down here until we are ready, and then they'll just explode onto the scene and be a starter. It takes time, even at the major league level.
Yeah, it takes time. You need those ABs like Otto Kemp last year. I mean, he had a nice streak there for a little bit at the plate. Obviously, the field wasn't as great, but still, these guys need to see live reps with big league pitching. And, when you have it, you have it. We're going to have this conversation about Connor Griffin in a couple of weeks when they keep him in AAA for service time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Nori, maybe needs to get that fast track, not to the majors. He still needs a little time, but I say give him some AAA looks.
Yeah. See how he does in AAA. If there's injuries later on in the season, maybe he comes up for a couple weeks, kind of gets his feet wet, drops back down. But I think ignoring what he just did against all world talent. Now, because you think of who Venezuela's path was, you played a lot of AA talent in this tournament. Not Venezuela, Team Italy. I mean, Team Italy had a really good pool. And then they had to go through a lot of great teams to get to where they got. So it's not like he was seeing a lot of AA pitching. He was seeing major league players on almost every roster. If he had shined during pool play and then fallen apart during the quarters and semis, different story. Then I would have said that's a AA guy playing AA players. But he shined against major league talent. So I don't know. I'm not convinced that he needs more time. Especially in Weenie Hut Juniors, bring him up to AAA.
I know, right?
Let him see some guys on rehab assignments or some guys who have touched the bigs and come back down.
Yeah, it just feels logical that should be the route that they should take, but I don't know. It's a lot of moving parts, but you talked about Team Italy, you talked about Dante Nori, but Aaron Nola, he looked pretty sharp this tournament.
Yeah, it's even year Nola, which has kind of become a bit of a thing. But he was phenomenal. So in that same list, that's why I kind of titled this the way that I did. There were 3 all-tournament pitchers. Aaron Nola was one of them. The other 2, of course, Paul Skeens and Logan Webb, who were both sensational. But keeping with the Phillies.
And neither of them pitched the title game?
Well, Paul, I agreed with how you use Paul. You got to use Paul.
You got to use Paul against the DR, yes.
Yeah, Logan Webb, you probably could have skipped that Canada start and took, gambled with somebody else. You also could have had Tarek Skubal not be a complete bitch.
Has anyone lost more public perception, points than he has?
It's just everything he does is wrong. I mean, he shows up to the game. If you had to go be with the Tigers, I'd be mad. But I could almost wrap my head around it. Okay, you know what? That's his team. He's been there X amount of years. The Tigers have a good team this year. They're going to make a run. I'd be annoyed, but I could get my head there. He's in the goddamn dugout. He's dressed as a fan. It's like you got VIP tickets.
Yeah, he pretty much had VIP tickets for the whole tournament. And, that's something we get into because it really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But I've thought about it, and yeah, sure, he's lost a lot of points, but that man, if he were to go out there and get injured during a start and lose all of that money, because he's going to break the salary cap if there's a salary cap coming in.
And I'm with you.
It's a really delicate line you have to toe, especially with the agents, with all the special, requirements. That's why Mason Miller didn't pitch.
Which is bullshit. I mean, because the Padres, the rule was
that wasn't Mark DeRosa's fault as much as everyone likes to blame Mark DeRosa for everything.
Yeah, well, he hung the Padres out to dry in the post game. They asked, why not use Mason Miller there?
I mean, he's been public enemy number 1 on Twitter for weeks now, so I understand that. So it's perfectly fine. I mean, I'm looking at Skubal's contracts, and he's made roughly about $12 million over the course of his career. He might cash in for $300 to $400 million.
And that's the thing. If that's your stance, I think he
Don't
just
pitch at all.
managed this all kinds of wrong. One, I'm not personally of the opinion that 4 innings in March is going to lead to an injury for a pitcher. When you have freak injuries like Reese Hoskins tripping over first base, like that shit can happen. If something's going to happen to his arm, it's going to be when it's under stress and under load later on in the year. I don't think 60 pitches in March would have sent him over the edge. And if 60 pitches in March sent him over the edge, then he was fucked before April ended anyway. Like, you know what I'm saying? He wasn't going to exert himself to the point where he would create an injury that wasn't already there.
I'm pretty sure he pitched for the Tigers like yesterday or 2 days ago or something like that and went back to Team USA. So, it's all sorts of messy, but we got to focus on the Phillies. And, it always seems like these guys get the big hits. I mean, Trey had it the last World Baseball Classic, and, now Bryce had it. And, of course, they had the answer immediately. An all-time great moment was squandered by the wayside.
Yeah, and, I thought that was a big moment for Bryce because we got so used to him kind of always being there for us, or the big hit. And probably the last 2 seasons, it hasn't really felt that way. And you can't expect him to always do it. He is human. But there's been some instances over the last 2 seasons where he's come up in that spot, and we've kind of felt like, oh, we got Bryce here, thank God. The moment has seemed too big at times recently, where he's chasing at pitches, that aren't in the zone. He's chasing high. He's trying to create that magic that he once had. And this was the first time in a couple of years where it really felt like, okay, Bryce is kind of back where you're used to him being. I know he's had a horrible WBC, but in the championship game, when you needed him the most, he had a double. Did he have 3 hits?
I think he went 3 for 4.
Yeah, I think he had a single. I think a single, double, and then that 2-run shot. So yeah, he came up big when you needed him. Kyle Schwarber had a very bad semi and final, unfortunately, but I believe he still led Team USA in hits across the whole WBC. So
he went 2 for 4. That's for
okay, so a double and a homer.
Yeah, still,
and in a game where we had 3 hits, 2/3 were Bryce. They were both extra base hits. That's still a great.
I think it was a single. He might have stretched it to a double. I think he had the double in the game before against the Dominican Republic.
Oh, you're right. Okay. Either way, whatever.
But
he's on base twice.
Team USA only had 3 hits. 2 of them were Harper.
2 were Bryce. Yeah, it was a horrible
Schwarber
game.
came up big in the last game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Schwarber had a couple hits in the semi. He's had a pretty abysmal, unfortunately, elimination round. He was great in pool play, but I don't think he had a big hit. I think he might have had a single in the semi. I don't think he drove anybody in.
Yeah, he had a single. He still hit 364, but I mean, he did disappear when.
Yeah, he disappeared in the semis and the final, but the whole team did. I mean, Aaron Judge forgot how to hit.
Well, that was going to bring me to the point. In a clutch situation, I don't care how cold Harper's been. I'd take Harper at the plate 100 times out of 100 over Judge.
Yeah, because you've seen him do it before.
You've never seen Judge do it, and obviously Twitter was loaded with jokes, but it's who he is as a player. It's what it's come down to, because he's shown us time and time again that he'll probably go out in this regular season, hit 60 home runs, the Yankees will make the playoffs, and probably hit 100 in the playoffs. It's just what it is.
Yeah, he's big when it doesn't matter, and then comes up small when it does. And that Harp, say what you will about him for most of the season, although he's never. I mean, we're looking at this glass half empty. A bad season for Bryce Harper. I think he hit 270 for 20, mid 20 something bombs last year, which isn't what you expect out of Bryce Harper. But anybody not named Bryce Harper, you're pretty ecstatic with that season. But there's some cause for concern. I think a lot of people, myself included, don't love the way that fastballs are getting by him now.
Mm-hmm. Bat speed's down a little bit.
I think the bat speed's down. I think he's going to have to adjust his swing a little bit. I wish I could give someone credit on the broadcast, because once they brought it up, I couldn't unsee it. But whoever was on the call last night had mentioned it, where you see Harper load up, he has his bat on his shoulder until the pitcher hits a certain point in his progression. Then he picks it up and kind of locks in. And they had mentioned that the whole process just feels a step behind, to where he could be timing it up the way 27-year-old Bryce could time up a pitch. And his body might just not work the same. He might be a tick slower. And that whole motion needs to get sped up, because, I believe the home run he hit was off of a fastball, maybe.
I believe so.
But he got a lot of fastballs got by him. He just couldn't keep up. And, that's a guy who used to feast on fastballs. And that's, he's not going to – if you hang a curveball against Harper, yeah, we know it's going to be in the seats. But that's easy for him.
It was off. Where's it at? That's bottom 7. Bottom 8. It's actually off a changeup, but it's a 93 mile an hour, so that might have just been a fastball. They might just label it differently because pitches were.
Yeah, it's a hot changeup.
Yeah, that's like a scheme splitter.
Yeah, he's
almost.
So disgusting.
The Phillies took center stage again. I mean, what more can you say? We didn't even mention Christopher Sanchez, who looked great. So there's a lot of promising signs going into this regular season. Obviously, you still have to contend with the Dodgers. We always talk about, and the rest of the NL East. But
I thought Brad Keller looked really good too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't even mention that one. So
yeah, he'll be a nice addition to that pen now that you have, Duran obviously at the top. You can look at Alvarado, Keller, maybe depending on matchup. The other guy switches to the 7th. And then now we're looking at, last year you had Kerkering throw in the 9th in some situations, but pretty consistently the 8th. Now he's like almost a bridge. I mean, he's coming in maybe the 6th. If you've been watching spring training, I forget, I think his last name is pronounced Brickhouse, the sidewinder that we got in free agency. He's been really hard to hit. There was another guy whose name, unfortunately, I'm blanking on, but I mean, we're deep in the bullpen this year. This is probably one of the Phillies' best bullpens they've assembled.
Yeah, you have a good bullpen, you have a good starting rotation. It just feels like the lineup is lacking one piece. Hopefully, Adolis can, recapture that form. He looked good, I believe, what was it, yesterday they played, and he had 4 hits over 100 exit velo. That's a great sign. So,
yeah, he's going to be a big piece. But if there's something that we learned from the WBC, you can win with pitching. I mean, the DR game, I think, was a great example of that, where you had 2 lineups who were, projected to put up 8 to 10 runs a game. It should have been murderer's row. And, both teams are able to kind of stymie each other. And that day, the U.S. had better pitching, and they sneak out a win. Even against that Venezuela game, the bats went unusually cold. But, pitching held a very good Venezuela offense to 3 runs. So if I'm looking at the Phillies, I'm looking at that as kind of being my formula this year, is we are going to have to keep teams under 4 runs a game. We just don't have the firepower to win shootouts this year. But we're also built to do that, which is nice.
The problem. It's the problem, but it's also the solution at the same time, where, the lineup is getting older, and obviously we need younger pieces, and that will come in the form of prospects. But, you can only win so many games off of pitching. I agree, but that offense just needs to perform probably just above league average, around league average with this pitching staff, and they'll be fine. But it won't inspire any confidence in me if they do, and they go into a series against Ohtani and all those guys.
Yeah. And the thing with the Phillies is the same as Team USA. It's not necessarily the amount of run production. It's just, do you feel like this team can squeeze across a run when you really need them to? And we haven't felt that way about the Phillies since really 22. I don't need them to put up 8 runs a game. If they win 3-2, I don't care. They can win the whole season by 1. It's just the fact that, if we're in the 8th and we need to manufacture a run, do we think we have the guys that can get on base, pass the baton, and scratch one across? And it's just not the way this team's designed. It's a lot of older guys who are brought here to mash home runs, who are past their home run mashing days, in large part. I mean, you still have Harp, you still have Schwarber, but, JT, that's not his game anymore. Trey Turner's coming off a phenomenal year last year, but who knows? I mean, it's going to be hard to keep that pace this year. There's going to be a little bit of regression there.
Yeah, if he loses a step, that'll be a cause for concern. I haven't seen it yet, but it's very real possibility coming up with his age. And it's just the core is so old, and the young guys they progressed, and then it felt like they all hit their ceiling. Like Bohm hit his ceiling, Stott hit his ceiling, and they're not bad players. They're good ball players to have on, especially the contracts that they're on. But it gets to a point where you got to set them up for success.
Yeah, and you can't keep thinking, that, okay, this is going to be the year that he turns into, an all-star second baseman, all-star third baseman, all-star left. Like, that might just not be who they are, and you have to build the team based on who they actually are, not who you think they can eventually reach. But on the more positive side of things, when you're looking at this rotation, especially the starters this year, we came into the season with one sure thing, if we're being completely honest. If you backtrack about 2 months, you could count on Chris Sanchez. You weren't sure about Wheeler's recovery. Who knew which Nola you were going to get? Andrew Painter hadn't thrown meaningful innings yet, and Jesus Luzardo hadn't been extended yet. Now that we're at the end of spring training, I look at this rotation and feel completely differently. Zach Wheeler seems to be way ahead of schedule. He's already doing mound work. He could be back. He might miss a month of the season at most, which would be phenomenal for Phillies fans. Chris Sanchez is standard. Luzardo back on what I think is a very fair deal. He basically got the Ranger deal, younger, a little bit better stuff. I love Ranger to pieces, but for money, I'd rather have Luzardo. Aaron Nola looks as good as he's looked in a long time. WBC pitched 10 innings, gave up 1 earned, and he was missing bats. Fastball sitting 95, so you love what you're seeing from Aaron. And Andrew Painter has gotten better start to start. If you watch today, the fastball didn't dip the way it has previously. He got through 4, and he was still sitting 97. That's what you'd love to see if you're the Phillies. And Taijuan Walker's had a good spring. So you go from having a ton of question marks to a rotation that's probably legitimately solid 6 deep.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. I mean, you look at the Luzardo contract extension; it's a great number. It also just makes you realize how good of a number that the Red Sox got in Garrett Crochet, because it's right around that ballpark, which is disgusting. But Luzardo extended. We talked about it, that the era of Phillies baseball would have ended where we were a couple weeks ago if Luzardo just got out the door and walked, because like you said, Wheeler wasn't a sure thing of how he's going to come back. No, who knows? Painter is still an unknown. He's we haven't got to that point where he's a known commodity yet, but all I could really bank on was Christopher Sanchez being that guy, and of course he's still that guy. But you feel so much better now, and you're going to need these guys in a postseason series. Like I said, the standard is the Dodgers. We're just going to keep comparing it to the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. There was that leaked report that I mentioned a couple of times last year. The Dodgers thought, hey, the Phillies, this is our World Series. We're just going to run over everyone else. And,
it kind of
they did up until the World Series. The Blue Jays fought back.
But
it felt like the Phillies, that was the biggest test for them until the Blue Jays obviously did that. But, they were so close every time. The games were just so close and just came down to little errors, but they all pitched so great, and it's a strength. And you just got to keep these guys healthy going into October, because Wheeler, Luzardo, and Sanchez, not in that order, of course, but it's going to be a tough 3-person rotation to deal with. And then you have Nola, who could potentially, eat a couple innings. Painter, who knows where he'll be by then. They might limit his innings coming off of, Major League debut.
Yeah.
We have Taijuan Walker there as well, so.
Yeah, it's a team that's built to win in October in a different way than we previously thought. They're not going to match their way to a title, but they very well could pitch their way to one. So we will certainly see how that shapes up as the season goes along. On the Eagles side of things, there haven't been too many huge moves. I don't remember the timeline. Did we do a show post Woolen, or has that happened since our
post? Okay,
so we haven't talked about Woolen.
We've talked about him, or no, it happened pre-show. We talked about it on the show.
Okay,
that's what I meant to say.
So
we got up to Tariq Woolen, but we haven't covered everything after that, I don't think.
Yeah, so we got. Today, you have the Andy Darnold news. I think you and I talked privately about the Dallas Goedert contract,
Insane.
um, which he should never pay for a beer in Philadelphia again. I hope, regardless of the season he has, I hope the fans recognize the number that he came back for and granted him the first ever Philadelphia criticism immunity pass because he truly took a 50% discount to come back to this team. Everybody should have advised him to go take multiple years and more millions anywhere else. And I can only imagine that this was a time where he overrode his agent and decided to stay in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, Denver definitely offered him probably 12 to 13 million at least in that ballpark. You see them go out and trade for Jalen Waddle. They're really different positions, but still an impact on the offense that they desperately needed. So there was definitely suitors out there for him. Maybe the Ravens as well, because Njoku's visiting the Ravens. So I mean, it's a fantastic contract. 1 year, $7 million. It takes a 13 mil hit off the cap. The Eagles have the 7th most cap space right now. Unbelievable what he's doing. I mean, how he's just void year here, void year there. It's like Johnny Munt has a void year. Johnny Munt's gonna be a fantastic addition to the offense, but it's a 1 year, like $2 million deal, and he's like probably like 3 void years in there. Woolen has like 4.
Yeah, what how he's able to do with the cap is magical. So Dallas Goedert being back is massive.
I heard someone explain that. I don't remember who it was, but it's like if you take the dead cap hit now and the cap hit for 2027, it equals less percentage of the cap than it would if he would have got the deal straight up. So he's like taking like little percentages off the cap. That's the main goal here with these void years.
Yeah, just he likes to win at the margins, but then it adds up over time. And we have a wildly talented Eagles squad who, like you said, we're still top 10 in the league in cap space. So that lets you go out, hopefully lock up Jalen Carter long term before the season starts. And then we'll see kind of how everything else shakes out cap wise. I'm purposely not going to talk about AJ Brown this episode because it truly. It feels like everybody is just using it for clicks at this point, and no one has any idea what the hell's going on. So we're going to talk about moves that have actually happened. Jonathan Jones, veteran presence in the cornerback room. I think it's a depth signing, if anything. The Andy Dalton one is an interesting think piece, and we can use our last three or so minutes on that because, does that signal? We think it does. We talked off air about this. A corresponding move for Tanner McKee? And if so, what is his actual value at this point?
Look, if Arizona still had Jonathan Gannon and they didn't fire him, you could circle that in right now. But I think it's a third. I want to say a day 2 pick. I don't know where in the 3rd round. Maybe the Jets can make an offer. They're kind of uncertain at quarterback. Yeah, they do have Geno, but they could use a young guy in there to maybe compete with them if they don't want to use a pick on a quarterback this year. I'd say Arizona as well. I think those are like the 2. Pittsburgh, maybe. I mean,
yeah, Pittsburgh is maybe
Rodgers,
they try to squeeze another year out of Rodgers, have McKee learn. But I heard they're also pretty high on Will Howard there.
Yeah, so that's probably like my lowest. I'd say Arizona is the main one after they swung and missed on Malik Willis, which so
Arizona
that is
Jets because Geno Smith is a stopgap. Both of those are definitely possible. I'd be happy with a 3rd for McKee. There was whenever he plays well, everybody on WIP is like, dude, McKee for a 1st. He's going to be a friend. When he got extended action last year, you did kind of see who Tanner McKee is at this point. And he's not ready to be a starter. He's a project still. A project with a lot of great intangibles and a guy who's shown that I think someone could get him to that level, but he's not there now. So I'd be perfectly fine. A 3rd for him would be great for the future of this team. We talk all the time about how we have to build exclusively through the draft. So, any of those picks in the top, 4-ish rounds would be phenomenal. And Andy Dalton, if called upon, could probably win us 2 or 3 games. I mean, knock on wood, Jalen gets dinged up. He never gets severely injured. So he's not the type of guy that misses the whole season. If he did, it wouldn't matter who's under center. We're screwed anyway. But Andy Dalton could keep your head above water.
He feels like a player coach.
A little bit. He has it has Josh McCown vibes.
And I'm okay with that. It is what it is. He's had a lot of great football in him over the years. If he brings some more expertise to this offense, someone for Jalen to learn under, he's the veteran in the room. So I'm perfectly fine. It's a 7th round pick. They had 3 of those anyway. So it's like,
it's kind of a throwaway a little bit. I mean, I know we got my lot in the 7th, but still, what are the odds?
Yeah. If you get 1 year of like good player coaching out of Andy Dalton for the offense and just being around Jalen, it's worth way more than a 7th. So
exactly. I mean, anybody we took in the 7th would have been a practice squad guy, almost guaranteed. So he's somebody who can contribute right away. Like I said, hopefully be a good influence on Jalen. Not that he needs it. But it's been a pretty quiet week Eagle-wise. I mean, the fact that these are the 2 moves that we're kind of leaning into exhibits why we spent 24 minutes of today's episode on the Phillies.
Free agency happens fast, man. I mean, the tampering period, it happens, and then it's just over within like 3 days. There's some other names that are going to come in, but it happens fast, and now we're basically on to the draft. So we'll see how that all plays out. Everyone uses AJ Brown's name for clicks at this point. It's just foregone conclusion. I don't blame them. Get what you can out of social media. I mean, is what it is. I don't like scrolling and seeing AJ Brown's name a bunch of times, but I get why people do it.
Yeah.
It inspires, people to read, but we'll see what happens there. I don't know. I mean, Omar Cooper came in for a visit. I really like Omar Cooper. I think he's got the goods as like a power slot wide receiver. I know Devonta's better in the slot, but if you trade AJ Brown, Devonta Smith's going to have to play outside. So like we've always said, the draft is going to tell us what's going to happen with AJ Brown. If Howie goes out there and drafts absolutely 0 wide receivers in a deep wide receiver class or spends a day 3 pick on one, okay, AJ Brown's staying. But if he goes out there and fires a round 1 selection on like an Omar Cooper Jr. or Casey Concepcion, AJ Brown's gone.
Yeah. So we'll let Howie tell us on round 1. We'll take a couple days in between the next few shows and do some research ourselves before we generally will put out a mock draft to show before the draft. So you'll know at that point what we think is going to happen. But until such a time, I'm Brandon. That's Ryan. This is the Passing Report, and we'll see you next time.